Welcome back, everybody, and we're going to go on to what is essentially part two of labeling theory, and we are going to discuss reintegrative shaming theory, which is authored by a theorist named Braithwaite. This is a more modern theory, and it focuses on the concept of shaming. Certainly, we are all raised with the concept of shame as a behavior modifier. From yay high all the way up through adulthood, and shaming is the process of disapproval, and it has the impact of evoking remorse in the individual with the ultimate goal of altering behavior, minimizing negative behavior, future behaviors, repeated bad behaviors. According to Braithwaite, there are two types of shaming. There's reintegrative shaming and there's disintegrative shaming. Disintegrative shaming is arguably what we do here in the United States criminal justice system. This is shaming that causes stigma, and it creates a class of outcasts, a class of criminals. People are shamed for their actions, and they're branded as a criminal with no room for forgiveness, with no room for restoration to the community. People are denied employment. They're denied a bond with society, right? Meaning that when people know that you're a criminal, they're not running to come make friends with you. People tend to stay away. They tend to isolate, not trust you. And the argument here from Braithwaite, like previous learning or labeling theories, is that this disintegrative shaming creates further engagement in crime. That isolation, that inability to forgive, and that inability for people to be reimmersed into general society after they've been engaged in crime in the criminal justice system just provokes further crime. Braithwaite argues, that we should be engaging in reintegrative shaming. And reintegrative shaming is still punishing behavior with shame, right? So when somebody engages in an illegal action, we as a society still shame them, right? We shame them. We hope for them to feel remorse and embarrassment. We want them to feel the weight of community disapproval because we are still looking to modify behavior. However, there is a limit on the shaming and reintegrative shaming, that we don't do it for the rest of the individual's life. We don't make them an outcast. We shame you until you feel the weight of your crime, you feel the shame of your crime, you feel remorse, you're ready to modify behavior, and at that point, we reintegrate you into society, hence reintegrative shaming. That there is a limit, and once you have felt the weight of your punishment, we forgive, and we reintegrate you to the community. We don't limit job opportunities. We don't isolate you socially. You have experienced shame, and we are providing compassion and forgiveness. Frequently, Braithwaite says that the best way to go about this is to actually have reintegrative shaming ceremonies to essentially decertify your shame, right? And to say, okay, you are officially welcomed back into the community. What's in the past is in the past, and there's no label here. You are one of us. Braithwaite argues that if we took a more reintegrative shaming approach, we would see a massive decrease in crime. However, this is very culturally driven, the idea of disintegrative shaming versus reintegrative shaming. Here in the United States, we have a heavy emphasis on disintegrative shaming. Part of that is because culturally speaking, we are very independent. We are very autonomous, right? We have a very heavy emphasis on the individual versus other cultures that are very community oriented. I think the best example here would be Japanese culture, where, when you commit a crime in the United States, you're committing a crime, and it's your shame and it's your burden to bear. But in Japan, for example, when you commit a crime, not only are you shaming yourself, but you've shamed your family, you've shamed your employer, you've embarrassed them all, and they all carry some of the weight of the burden of what you have done because they are associated with you. You have, your parents raised you, and therefore if you do something wrong, some of it's on them. Your boss hired you. If you do something wrong, then your boss obviously has poor judgment, right? So this tends to be very cultural, and cultures that are more communal make a greater use of reintegrative shaming, and it's very successful in modifying behavior. We have less success here with modifying behavior due to shame in the United States because people are very individual and very autonomous. My problem is my problem. But think about, if every time you did something wrong, it was equally your parents' fault and it was equally your employer's fault. Think of the social pressure that would push back on you. Think of the shame that would push back on you. We often feel more obligation and responsibility to others than we do ourselves. But here in the United States, from a cultural perspective, you're just responsible for yourself. This can be a double-bladed sword. So you look at a culture like Japan, and they have an exceptionally high suicide rate. And it is, in fact, because of this weight of the burden of everybody around you, that if I make a bad decision, if I act on an impulse, if I make a mistake, which everybody does, all of the above, not only am I screwing up my own life, but I'm ruining the lives of others. And that weight, that social weight of what have I done to everybody through my own bad actions, it sits very heavy, and that is why they have such an intensely high suicide rate. Um, but the idea here being that in a culture where you feel the weight of everybody else's culpability for your actions, there should also be reintegration. That, look, you should be ashamed. We are upset with you. Don't do it again. Be embarrassed. Feel really bad. But now it's done. Change your behavior. Come back. You are welcome. We want you here. We're not isolating you. Your opportunities are not going to be limited. And if we could find a way to do that, to reintegrate after the shaming, Braithwaite argues that the labeling factor would dissipate and we would see crime vastly decrease. But here in the United States, we are very heavily focused on disintegrative shaming. And as long as there's disintegrative shaming, it's much like Lemmert's primary and secondary deviance. There is no welcome back into society. There is no compassion. There is no forgiveness. There's just shaming.